Hi, I'm Justus Page, cinematographer of Neighborhood. Today, I'm going to be breaking down a scene from the film, why we shot it how we did, lit it how we did, and why those choices mattered. Let's begin with some context of this scene. Our main character, Cameron, has just woken up after spending the night in this abandoned house. He'd found some food scavenging the house the night before, and now he plans on eating it. This is a ceremonious thing since food is scarce in the apocalypse, particularly the food he's found. Let's dive into the scene. First off, let's knock off the low-hanging fruit. This shot was lit by two Intelitech F-165 light cannons being shot through an 8x8 highlight rag rigged outside of the sliding glass door just off frame. I'm very preferable to highlight. Shane Hurlbut has really championed it, and so I decided to use it a few projects ago, and I fell in love with the quality of diffusion, so it's in most of my builds now. I had built out a lookbook on Shot Deck that I had discussed with Michael, the director. Once we had agreed on the tone and quality of light for this scene, I had talked it through with my gaffer, Ash Ruiz. We'd scouted the location before the shoot, and her and I had discussed that the lighting would be coming through that sliding glass door, and what I was hoping it looked like, based on our lookbook. I took this scouting photo as a reference while we were there. Our challenge was that in this world there's no electricity, so all of our light sources either had to be driven by naturally occurring light, or by something that would be battery powered. Funny enough, we shot this in the morning when the sun was on the other side of the house, so the light in this scene is entirely generated by lighting, not the sun. So let's talk composition. Finding balance in this composition took some tweaking on our part, and we moved Cameron's mark and the set decoration around until we got to this. But why did this work? Let's discuss what we did. There was a reality I had to be aware of with Cameron. He has a darker complexion. If I had put him in a spot where the fridge or microwave would have been right behind him, he would have appeared too dark. His skin tone against white would have created the wrong kind of contrast, so I positioned him between the white spaces to give him some separation. The other key was to make sure that our white points weren't blown out, but also that Cameron was bright enough, which took some juggling and angling of the lights, but we did it. We also had a weird bit of negative space to the left of the oven, which we filled with that plant. I had it adjusted until it was in the right spot to balance out Cameron, as can be seen when I draw this line. You can see the parallel between their placement, both filling out what would have been distracting negative space, and giving visual balance where needed. The positioning of the clock in the shot also fills out another section of negative space, and provides some depth and direction to give some 3 dimension to the composition. Let's talk about the next shot in this sequence. This angle is reminiscent of that scouting photo I'd showed earlier. I ended up pulling back a bit because the scouting photo was shot on a 35, but we pulled wider to about a 24 for the actual shot. We shot this side of the scene after our previous angle, and that played to our advantage for a couple of reasons. One being that it was mostly lit. I had noticed earlier that the window behind him was too dark in relation to the large glass door that motivates all the light in this scene. So I had Ash put up another light cannon outside that window and adjust the brightness until it wasn't fully blown out, but it was too bright to see out of. Now there was an intent behind doing that. This story takes place mostly inside in kind of a strange post-apocalyptic world. What I wanted was for all the windows in this film to kind of have this washed out quality, as if the world beyond it didn't exist, almost as if this were a video game, where the boundaries of the map were confined to the inside of the house, if that makes any sense. The key again was to balance out our whites so they wouldn't be so overpowering as to be distracting. Using this angle to show him blowing the dust off the can was also intentional, since being backlit like that would help the dust show up the most. The last thing I want to touch on with this shot is lines. Finding a geometric symmetry in the space instead of with the subject is also an intentional choice about what's permanent and what's temporary. The space isn't his, and it in itself is sort of a character. And for all of you who have eagle eyes, the plant is in a different spot here than it was in the previous angle. We pushed it back a bit so you could see it in this shot to give you another piece of understanding as to where everything is in this scene as we move around it. And lastly, we have our close-up of Cameron. We're meant to be a bit more intimate with him in this shot. We punched into a 35 to pull that background closer to him. This angle is where more of the gravity of this scene comes into play. We reflected that by taking away the hot spots. No windows to add that kick of light into the shot. What we have is Cameron and the can. At this angle, we even knock a lot of punch out of the whites because the angle the light hits at doesn't throw the white back at us. And notice all the gradients of light we have. The light falls from lights to darks and vice versa. It has a softer emotional quality to it now. I chose this spot because all of these layers of light created depth and closeness to Cameron that something straight on or something at a higher angle wouldn't have. We got lower and we got closer. Again, calling back to the first shot, I still chose to position him between our two white spots to prevent him from being overpowered and appearing to be underexposed. But this time, the lead room is in front of him. It almost feels like there should be somebody there on that right side, and we should be looking over their shoulder. But there isn't. And it really drives home the isolation and loneliness that this character's going through internally. And it really gives us a good look at him and how much the space always seems to overtake him. There are themes we talk about in these shots that carry through the film, and ideas about character expression and inner dialogue that are alluded to through the visuals. We went into this with a plan, and with intent in every angle. But it was inevitable that we adjusted the shots several times and swapped the shooting order occasionally. And so I wanted to thank my first AC, Hal, for always being on hand to move the camera and to readjust the focus every time I made an adjustment, which was often. And to my second AC, Ephraim, for always being ready with the slate and listening in on mine and Michael's discussions so he could be ready for what came next. Executing a scene takes a village, and even simpler scenes like this one still require a lot of thought and coordination to make happen. And we had a team of doers and professionals that allowed Michael and I to make conscious choices about each shot and see them executed beautifully. I'll be breaking down more scenes from Neighborhood in the near future, so stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.